There are some knives and tools that just impress you right away, like almost immediately. And then there are some that you completely underestimate. And for me, I think that has to be the Victorinox Climber. Because when I first looked at this, I really couldn't understand why so many people recommended it. It looked almost identical to the classic Spartan, except adding some scissors and a really useless hook. And then it carried over the corkscrew from the Spartan, which is one tool I absolutely never used. And honestly, I don't even drink wine, so why would I want to carry a corkscrew every day? But actually using the Climber for a little while, I realized I've been looking at it the completely wrong way. Because this isn't just a dedicated wine opener. In all actuality, I have to say that this tool is probably the most Swiss Army knife Victorinox ever made. So today I want to explain why I completely overlooked the Climber, why it's become one of my favorite models in their lineup, and why this actually might be the classic Swiss Army knife most people should buy. So let's get into it. The Victorinox Climber is a 91mm Swiss Army knife that's been around for decades, and it's kind of easy to see why this has survived. In fact, this is actually much older than one would probably initially assume, as this bears a really strong resemblance to some early models from the 30s and the 40s. But the Climber name wasn't really finalized until the 70s, and then we ended up with this guy right here. And size-wise, I feel like it sits right in the sweet spot. It's not too small like the keychain models, but it's not as bulky as the 4 or 5 layer options. I think it's kind of right in the middle and pretty manageable. The Climber uses a 3-layer construction, which gives a really nice balance between keeping it pocketable while still having a buttload of tools shoved in under the hood. You get a large blade, a small blade, a can opener with a small screwdriver, a bottle opener with a large screwdriver and a wire stripper, a reamer, a punch, scissors, a multi-purpose hook, a corkscrew, and then hidden under the scales, you of course have the classic combo of a tweezers and a toothpick. But if you buy the plus scales or swap them over like what I did here, you can also add a pressurized ballpoint pen, funny enough. There's also a really small slot in the scales near the corkscrew where you can insert Victorinox's stainless steel straight pen, which is something a lot of people probably don't really realize even exists. I might get some comments about these scales, so I'm going to tell a story about them real quick. These were custom made and 3D printed for the channel, hence the logo and the name. Funny enough, I happened on a local Facebook marketplace listing for 3D printed scales, and I messaged the seller asking if he could make some for the channel. Yet somehow I ended up having a beer with him for a few hours, talking about watches, knives, EDC gear, life, and everything in between. He could not have been a nicer guy, and he even has an Etsy store where he sells some scales like this. So I'll link his Etsy store in the description below if you want to check it out. The biggest reason I kind of ignored and kind of turned my nose up at the Climber was actually kind of simple. The corkscrew. I figured I would never use it. I don't carry wine bottles around, and I certainly don't need to open one on a random Tuesday afternoon. So why waste the space here? But after I started carrying this and researching this tool a little bit more, especially all the modifications you can do, I really realized the corkscrew isn't really strictly about wine anymore. In fact, it's actually become one of the best storage locations on the knife. I found some sellers online that sell a really tiny fire-starting ferro rod that twists directly into the corkscrew. Now, I haven't purchased one yet, but in theory, I think it's kind of brilliant. Instead of carrying a feature I'll never use, I can have an emergency fire starter that's always with me. If fire starting isn't your thing though, there's also mini eyeglass screwdrivers that fit inside the corkscrew, giving you another really useful tool without even increasing the size of the knife. So with these upgrades, suddenly this corkscrew stops feeling like wasted space, at least for me. It has potential to kind of feel like expanded storage, and honestly, I think it's really clever. Another reason I enjoy carrying the Climber is just simply its size. At around 87 grams, around 3 ounces, it's light enough that it disappears in the pocket. Considering the amount of tools on this kind of feels like a feather compared to something like a Leatherman. And though lacking a pocket clip here, you can add a small suspension clip to the keyring, and it's thin enough to stay comfortable all day in the pocket. But it's not fragile or cheap feeling at all, and it feels like it could handle substantial work. It doesn't have the bulk of something like a Handyman or a Swiss Champ, and unlike a full-size multi-tool, I really never hesitate to throw this in my pocket. It's one of those knives that's just always kind of easy to justify carrying due to the weight and comfortability. Now with the insane lineup that Victorinox has, there are going to be some people out there that really like this tool, and there's going to be some others that will absolutely trash this. But for me, I think it's a really solid all-around everyday carry tool. So what do I like most? First, I think the scissors are just absolutely excellent. I think I use scissors the most out of any tool on a multi-tool, and these work really well. I use it from everything from opening packages, cutting zip ties, even trimming my nails while traveling. Second, the overall tool selection feels really incredibly balanced. Nothing really feels wasted here. You have a really wide selection of tools and features. It doesn't really feel like anything's missing. I mean, we have everything from multiple knife blades to screwdrivers and even a freaking pen in here. You really can't beat the variety. Third, the quality is exactly what you'd expect from Victorinox. Everything opens up really nice and snaps into place smoothly. The fit and finish here are just outstanding. Fourth, I really love the customization here. You can just tell by the scales. You can add the plus scales, you can add a pen, you can carry a ferro rod, include the straight pin. Just little upgrades all like this make the climber really feel more capable, and you can really personalize it to your own needs. Finally, there's just something timeless about this. When people picture a Swiss Army knife, this is basically what they're imagining. Maybe one with red scales, but you get the idea. Now, of course, this isn't perfect. For one, the blades don't lock. So if you're used to one-handed modern knives, you'll notice this almost immediately. Some people really hate Swiss Army knives and think they're dangerous for this reason alone. I totally get that sentiment, but just kind of how you use the tool. Another negative is opening every tool requires two hands. The nail nicks can be a little bit brutal and frustrating, and definitely feels like something that could be updated. Also, the steel here kind of prioritizes corrosion resistance and easy sharpening over edge retention. You'll absolutely have to sharpen this more than premium steels on modern folders. Another thing people probably still won't care about is the corkscrew, even if you use it for accessories. I'm kind of in this boat as I don't really have these upgrades yet on order, so until these come in, this is just a little bit of a wasted tool for me. But at the end of the day, these aren't really deal breakers for me, but they're worth mentioning. Now I want to talk about value because I feel like this is where the climber really shines. For around 40 to 45 bucks, depending on the sales and color options, you're getting one of the highest quality pocket tools ever made. Victorinox has been building these knives for generations. They're incredibly reliable. Replacement parts and accessories are really easy to find, and chances are you'll still be carrying this 10 or 20 years from now. There aren't many products at this price range that have earned this kind of reputation. So for me, the climber feels like one of the best values out there for everyday carry. The funny thing is, I almost never even bought this knife. I convinced myself the corkscrew really made it unnecessary. But turns out that was the least important part of the climber. Because what sold me wasn't the corkscrew, it was everything else. The outstanding scissors, the hidden tools that were upgraded, the ability to customize this. It's just the perfect size. And the fact that it disappears in your pocket until you really need it. Because sometimes the gear we overlook can actually end up being our favorite. And for me, that's kind of exactly what happened with the Victorinox climber. If you've been skipping over this model like I did, it might be time to give it another look. If you enjoyed this video, let me know down in the comments which Swiss Army knife you actually carry every day, and if there's another model you'd like to see me cover next. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.